The sky over Portland, Oregon, was painted with soft pinks and ambers as the sun rose behind Mount Hood. Mornings were always a blur for Leah Foster, and this one was no different. She sipped her coffee from a metal thermos as the ambulance idled in traffic on Barber Boulevard. At 29, Leah was already known among her EMT peers for being precise, fast, and unflinchingly calm. Across from her in the rig sat her partner, Marcus Liu, flipping through their shift schedule on a tablet. Then the radio crackled. Dispatch to Unit 24, medical emergency at Maplewood Elementary. Male mid-40s collapsed. CPR in progress. Leah's hand tightened around the thermos. Without a word, she started the siren and hit the lights. Marcus dropped the tablet and radioed in. Traffic parted slowly as they navigated the morning congestion with practiced ease. "This one's close." "Hang on," she muttered. They pulled up to Maplewood Elementary less than 3 minutes later. Teachers and parents crowded the lawn. Students were crying. A gym teacher lay sprawled on the concrete, unmoving. A staff member knelt beside him, performing CPR with tear-streaked focus. Leah was out of the vehicle before it stopped rolling. She grabbed the AED from the jump bag while Marcus assessed the man's airway. "No pulse," Marcus confirmed. "Still unresponsive." "Leah, into radio, we need the defib now." "No pulse. Begin compressions." She placed the AED pads against the man's bare chest, one on the right side beneath his collarbone, the other on his lower left ribs. The machine buzzed to life. Analyzing heart rhythm. "Do not touch the patient." Seconds passed. The machine beeped again. Shock advised. "Clear?" Leah shouted. The man's body arched as the shock passed through him. There was a tense pause. Then his chest rose. A weak cough. Marcus leaned in. "He's got a pulse." Relief washed over Leah like a tidal wave, but she kept her focus. The man's vitals stabilized as the transport team loaded him for the hospital. Only later would they learn it was a cardiac arrhythmia. Without Leah's quick action, he would have died. Afterward, Leah lingered by the school's garden, watching the children being ushered inside. A small boy waved at her. She waved back. Another morning, another life saved. The sun was just cresting the hills above Scroon Lake, painting the farmland in gold and green. In a rural town tucked between maple forests and wide pastures, the day began quietly. Birds called to each other over the rustling leaves. Chickens squawked in the distance. Then came the sound of tires skidding, followed by a scream. 17-year-old Casey Wilder had taken his father's old pickup for a joyride, barely paying attention to the curves of the gravel road. He'd hit a rut, overcorrected, and veered off the path. The vehicle plowed through a wooden fence and struck a figure standing near a chicken coop. Casey braked hard. Dust choked the air. When it cleared, he saw her, pinned beneath the front axle, barely moving. Back in town, the call went out to the regional trauma unit. Carlos Benitez, a 29-year-old paramedic with quick instincts and a steady hand, heard it first. He was already en route within a minute. The drive through winding back roads was bumpy, but Carlos knew the terrain. By the time he arrived, a local deputy had cordoned off the scene. A teenage boy sat sobbing on the tailgate of the truck, and under the front fender lay a woman in her 50s, bloodied, pale, and crushed under weight and wood. "Carlos, we need the hydraulic lift. She's stuck. She's conscious but fading." The woman, Martha Hensley, groaned faintly as Carlos knelt beside her. Her pulse was rapid, erratic. Blood pooled beneath her hip. She had a compound fracture and likely internal bleeding. The volunteer fire team arrived moments later with the tools Carlos needed. "I've got her neck stabilized," he said, wrapping a collar around her. "Get that lift under the axle. On 3, go." The truck groaned as it lifted. The crush fence creaked and split apart. Carlos slid a backboard underneath her and coordinated the lift out, his voice calm despite the urgency. Martha winced and whimpered but stayed conscious. Her blood pressure was dropping. "Stay with me, Martha. You hear that chopper? That's your ride. You're going to be okay." The medevac arrived just in time. As the rotors kicked up dust across the hayfield, Carlos secured her fore, started fluid, and signaled the flight crew. They lifted off 5 minutes later, bound for Albany Medical Center. Casey sat handcuffed in the back of a patrol car, staring down at his shaking hands. Carlos gave him a brief look, not of anger, but heavy disappointment. Another near tragedy, averted by minutes. San Diego's East Industrial corridor rarely saw much traffic after dark. The warehouses that once buzzed with loading docks and forklifts now stood quiet, slowly decaying under flickering sodium lights. At 1:43 a.m., the quiet was broken by a thunderous blast that lit the sky in orange. The call came swiftly to first responders. Initial reports suggested an explosion at an abandoned storage facility on Bodega Avenue. Fire engines roared out of Station 9. A black column of smoke curled into the sky. EMTs to Maringouin and Deshawn Fields had just finished cleaning their rig after a long shift. The call came through just as they were preparing to hand off the vehicle. Explosion at 3410 Bodega. Hazmat en route. Multiple casualties. Tamara's eyes met Deshawn's. He gave a nod. Let's go. They sped through empty intersections, the wail of their siren chasing through the still night. At the scene, fire trucks were already setting up perimeters. The scent of chemical fumes was heavy in the air. Flames licked at the structure's south wing. Hazmat says unknown chemicals inside shouted a battalion chief. Keep back until we know what we're dealing with. But someone was shouting from inside the wreckage. A firefighter staggered out, coughing. Two men, backed by the interior stairwell, not moving. Tamara grabbed her respirator mask and double-checked the seals. Deshawn suited up beside her. We can't wait, she said. They'll suffocate before Hazmat gets clearance. They moved together, weaving through fallen beams and shattered metal. Glass crunched beneath their boots. At the far corner, half buried under drywall and soot, lay two men, both unconscious, barely breathing. Tamara, they're not breathing. Ventilate now, go. Deshawn pulled the bag valve mask from his pack and started compressions. Tamara cleared the airway of one of the men and began oxygen support. Time blurred. The heat was unbearable. Their skin itched from chemicals in the air. Minutes later, both victims were dragged clear by backup medics. One man began to stir. The other's pulse returned slowly, faintly. Later, during a police interview, one of the men admitted they were making illegal fireworks. Chemicals, accelerants, everything that could turn a fire into a bomb. Tamara and Deshawn didn't care about the charges. They'd seen the smoke, smelled the danger, and gone in anyway. That was the job. The cabin lights had dimmed, and the hum of the jet engine settled into a steady rhythm as Flight 392 soared above Colorado's Rocky Mountains. It was a routine late-night route from Phoenix to Denver, filled with business travelers and families returning from holidays. Paramedic Derek Hollis, off-duty and wearing a worn hoodie, was dozing in seat 17C. He hadn't taken a vacation in over a year, and this was his first break in months. The soft clink of a beverage cart nearby stirred him. Then came the scream. Flight attendants rushed forward. A woman had collapsed near the galley, her face ghost pale and her hands trembling. Is there a doctor on board? One attendant called. Derek was already unbuckling. He reached the woman, Monica Perez, a retired nurse in her late 60s, just as her breathing became shallow. Her eyes fluttered. Her lips were turning blue. He felt for her pulse. It was fast, irregular. Her extremities were cool. Oxygen now, Derek said, and keep her flat. No movement. She may have a pulmonary embolism. The crew brought over the emergency medical kit. It was limited basic masks, no IVs, no defib. Derek worked quickly, placing the oxygen mask over Monica's face. Derek, to flight crew, she needs O2 and to stay flat. Do not land until I say. The flight crew patched him through to a ground physician. Derek explained the symptoms: sudden collapse, shortness of breath, cyanosis. The physician agreed, likely a blood clot. Derek kept pressure on her vital points, watching her every minute. They were over the Rockies now, no airport in sight. But Monica's condition stabilized slowly. Her breathing evened out. Her pulse dropped from 140 to 100. The pilot made an emergency landing in Colorado Springs 40 minutes later. Paramedics were waiting. She's going to make it. Derek told him as they transferred Monica to a gurney. One of the flight attendants gave him a quiet thank you. Derek returned to his seat. The passengers around him clapped softly. He looked out the window. Still night, still flying. But someone had survived because he was there. Tulsa's sky glowed a dull gray, heavy with the weight of early summer humidity. The walk-in clinic on 43rd Street buzzed with its usual morning rhythm, clipboards shuffling, fluorescent lights humming, and the quiet murmur of patients awaiting care. No one could have predicted the quiet would shatter so violently. At 9:07 a.m., a woman in her early 40s entered the waiting room. She wore oversized sunglasses and a faded hoodie, her movements jittery and erratic. Receptionist Lindsay Moore offered routine greeting. But before the words could settle in the air, the woman slammed a pair of scissors onto the counter. "I want painkillers," she hissed, her voice tight with desperation. "Now, or she dies." Gasps erupted from the room. Lindsay, eyes wide, slowly raised her hands, trying to stay calm. Patients backed away, some ducking behind chairs. The woman left the counter, yanked Lindsay toward her by the collar, and pressed the scissors to her throat. The silent panic that gripped the clinic fractured into chaos. Someone bolted out the front door, frantically dialing 911. Within minutes, Tulsa PD and SWAT had locked down the block. Reporters gathered on the sidewalk, microphones in hand, narrating another terrifying day in modern America. Inside an ambulance parked a block away, EMT Sandra Velez was preparing supplies for her next call when her radio crackled. Possible hostage situation, walk-in clinic on 43rd. EMT presence requested. Sandra paused. She glanced at her partner, who had already opened the driver's door. Her instincts screamed this wasn't a typical call. She tossed her gloves into a pouch and grabbed her trauma kit. By the time they reached the police perimeter, an officer was briefing the SWAT commander. Sandra waited for a lull in the tense discussion before stepping forward. "I'm Sandra Velez, EMT. I served as a crisis negotiator in the Navy. Give me 5 minutes with her." The SWAT leader raised an eyebrow. "We're not here to talk her down. We're here to end this." Sandra looked past him to the glass windows of the clinic, where the hostage-taker silhouette was visible behind the counter. Lindsay remained frozen, her hands trembling above her head. "She's not a terrorist," Sandra said firmly. "She's scared, desperate, and probably in pain. If you go in heavy, people will get hurt. I can stop this." It took a tense 30 seconds of whispered discussion before the commander finally nodded. Inside the clinic, Sandra walked slowly toward the woman, her hands visible, her expression soft. "My name is Sandra. I'm not here to hurt you. I've been where you are. I know the pain feels endless." The woman flinched. "You don't know anything. I know what it's like to feel invisible, to be hurting so bad you do anything to make it stop." Sandra's voice didn't waver. "But this isn't the way. Let her go, and we can help you. You're not alone." Minutes ticked by. Sandra kept her posture calm, her voice steady. She told the woman about her own struggles with injury and addiction during her time in the Navy. She let silence hang between sentences, letting the woman breathe, feel heard. 14 minutes in, the scissors clattered to the floor. The woman collapsed into Sandra's arms, sobbing. Lindsay was unharmed. Police took the suspect into custody peacefully. As Sandra exited the clinic to a round of applause from stunned onlookers, she offered a tired smile. She had seen darker moments than this, but few more rewarding. Hooked on true crime? Hit subscribe and stay tuned to Deadly Affairs.